Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a review and it's continuing Bortnikoff week. If you've been following the channel, you know that it just got to the point where I was like, you know what, enough is enough. I've owned these Bortnikoff fragrances for years and years and I just haven't gotten around to reviewing a lot of them. And this is maybe the biggest review of all, the one that most people look forward to because it's one of Dmitry Bortnikoff's most popular scents and it's called Oud Maximus. Now, if you notice on the front of my bottle, you will see that it says, along with the fingerprint that you just can't get rid of, they just keep coming back no matter how many times you scrub this bad boy. It is a fingerprint magnet. So you will see Oud Maximus 2020. Now, an interesting story, little sidebar before we hop into the review. So originally, when this first came out in 2018, it actually just said Oud Maximus, no years. And then Dmitry Bortnikoff got the brilliant idea to start putting the years on there. In fact, he went so far as one of his bottle releases, he put autumn of 2019. So you'll see, I think, Oud Maximus 2018, and then autumn of 19, and then of course 2020. And then I think it got to the point where he was like, this is ridiculous. I can't keep up. That idea of putting the year that it was produced on comes from French wine houses. They use the term millésime. And if that name sounds familiar to you, if you're not French, obviously if you're French, you know what the hell it means. But if you're not French, like us in the United States, but you do know perfume, you will have heard it with Creed's fragrances. Creed tried to kind of borrow that idea. Basically, millésime means the best of the best. Like if you know Dom P, if you know Dom Perignon, you know that there are some years that they just don't produce a crop because the grapes are just not good enough. Their grapes are supposed to be millésime, the best of the best, the best of that year's harvest, if you will. But Dmitry Bortnikoff tried to start doing that, and then I think he figured out, this is way too much work. We're just going to go back. So now if you buy Oud Maximus, you're just going to get a bottle that says Oud Maximus, but the new cap, the original 2018 bottle came in a wood cap. I think all the way up until the 2019 version, it was a wood cap, and then 2020, this version, they switched to the gold cap here. And now the cap has that sort of barbed wire look down here. Instead of the B on the front, it looks like a barbed wire. And so it doesn't say the year anymore. You'll notice that it is an extrait de parfum. So I'm reviewing the 2020 version, but from what I know from people who are in the know, there's not very much change in Oud Maximus from what I hear. If anyone knows differently, do let me know. I've never smelled the older versions, and I've never smelled the newest version. So I'm just kind of going off of what I can discuss. So let's read the blurb. And so here's the notes. Bergamot, sweet orange, pink pepper, jasmine sambac, cardamom with a heart of rose de mai, Himalayan rose, Indian rose, hybrid rose, attar gulab, magnolia, frangipani, clove, tonka bean, and base of Indian oud roots trat. Very interesting. Oud Purple Co. Chain from Feel Oud, which is the company Dmitry Bortnikoff and Russian Adam created together. Their oud distilling company. Oud from Sri Lanka, also distilled by Feel Oud. Birch tar, tolu balsam, vanilla, deer musk, real deer musk from my understanding, and civet. Okay, so this bottle, 50 mils, goes for $350 retail. They also sell a 9 mil Discovery Atomizer for $90. So here's the little write-up according to the house. What is real exoticism? This is something that you were physically unable to try before. Today, many people know what oud is, but only a few know how rich and unusual the character of the wild oud can be when it is fully revealed in a masterfully created blend. In Oud Maximus, the concentration of oud oils is so high that to preserve other notes, a special technique was created for mixing the Laotian, Indian, and Thai oud with 4 rose oils from India, the Himalayas, Indonesia, and France. The opening of the fragrance is focused on the tantalizing animalic character of oud from Laos, supported by jasmine and citruses, a voluminous accord of ambery roses, and magnolia blooms in the heart, blossoms in the heart. The base consists of miscellaneous oud oils, civet, and the musk of Kabarga, which gives the composition roundness and softness. Musk of Kabarga. I've never heard Kabarga. I've never heard that before. This is how this precious fragrance revealing the very essence of wild oud is born. Oud Maximus is dedicated to Dmitry's son, Maxim. Okay, so the word Oud Maximus to me is a double play, okay? Because yes, on one hand, his son is named Maxim Bortnikoff, and what's interesting as a little sidebar, again, a sidebar now that we've taken a sidebar, is that his son has actually signed his name to a couple Bortnikoff fragrances. So from 2023, if you go to Parfumo and search Maxim Bortnikoff, you'll see there's two that actually have his son listed as the perfumer. One is called Le Voyage Oriental, and the other is called Victoria. I have not reviewed either on the channel yet, but I had a little bit of a conspiracy theory last year because at the end of 2022, Bortnikoff released 3 colognes, and I have a live stream, and it was titled A Very Bortnikoff Christmas, because I did it Christmas time of 2022. And I despised those 3 colognes. And that was the first time I've ever tried anything from the House of Bortnikoff where I was like, whoa, this is not good, okay? Everything else I tried was like a pure love. And then I started to try more things last year, like Scheherazade, I hated, okay? There were some things that the house started to do that wrong-footed me, okay? And then I heard Dimitri was in the hospital for a long time. And I started to have a conspiracy theory in my head of maybe his son was kind of helping run the business while times were tough. And I understand he was in the hospital for something very serious. Luckily, he's fully recovered from my understanding. He is one of the artisanal perfumers who has not been on my channel, so I don't know him like I know Russian Adam. But I know that it was pretty serious. But I think the house just felt like it took a left turn, okay? There were people complaining about things like the longevity of Musk Habib and, you know, all this stuff. And then the new releases just seemed to go in a different direction. So that was my conspiracy theory, that maybe his son, Maxim, who this fragrance is dedicated to, has started to try his hand at perfumery, okay? And without having his father right there, let's say, to guide him, maybe it was just a little bit of a rough start, okay? You know, like when you learn to drive a stick shift, sometimes you stall the car a couple times, right? Especially when you're new, that's going to happen. And that's kind of what it felt like with the House of Bortnikoff. Now, there have been some people that have said some of the newer stuff that's been coming out is back on track, but I can't verify that. So, but we'll see. I would love to try. I saw already there are new releases from the house in 2024, so they're still rolling on. But the second part of the name is obviously Maximum Oud. Okay, so you have Oud Maximus, which is a tribute to his son, Maxim, and also Maximum Oud. So it kind of is a little bit of a double play, if you will. And every time I say that, I think of the scene in Gladiator where they're like, Maximus, 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 which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Actually, I would go out on a limb and say Gladiator is my favorite movie of all time. So there you go. A little bit of random trivia about the Ram. So now, there are bits and pieces of Bortnikoff's other work that are present in Oud Maximus. So for example, when you first spray, when you first apply, you're going to notice a couple things. You're going to notice this sort of cardamom, pink pepper, spicy combo, which is also kind of a Bortnikoff signature. You're going to notice 2 citruses. One is bergamot, the other is orange. And that orange is actually used in Mysterious Oud. So if you know that orange line that kind of runs through Mysterious Oud, you'll get an idea of the orange that you're going to smell when you first spray Oud Maximus. But along with that, okay, you're going to get that cardamom and spice combination, and what I can only describe as like this floral swirl. So I think that as I've got to know this fragrance more and more, I think when they say you're going to get hit with this big Indian oud up front, they overemphasize that a little bit. Yes, you're going to get some funky oud, but it is wrapped with so much more. Oud Maximus is a little bit of a misnomer. We'll talk a little bit about it more, but like many Bortnikoffs, to my nose, the florals are they're done in a way. I wouldn't call them flashy, but I would just call them so different from any other house I've ever smelled. I've never smelled a house that can do florals like this. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again because it's true. If you only have smelled the French house bouquet, so if you're used to fine French perfumery of the past, so for example, if you're used to the combination of rose and jasmine and lily of the valley and, you know, all this good stuff, right? Then you are going to be shocked when you first smell some of Bortnikoff's creations, because Bortnikoff uses flowers that you're just not going to find in fine French perfumery. He's going to use things like magnolia and frangipani and blue lotus and, stuff like this. There's 4 types of roses in here. And along with that, in the opening, you're going to get some jasmine sambac in Oud Maximus. And so that floral accord, I can only describe it as like a swirl. Okay, the florals come to your nose in like this swirl. It almost feels like a swirl twist from one of those ice cream machines where all the flavors, the chocolate and the vanilla starts blending it together. It really feels like you just get hit with all these different flowers and they come to your nose very quickly. All right, it's like, imagine music, right? There are only so many notes, right? Someone has a guitar, someone else has a guitar. They both have the exact same notes, but just think of how many unique ways there are to combine them into a song, right? And that's kind of the way that I feel about Oud Maximus. Yes, they're going to remind you of sort of, they're going to remind you of Dimitri's other work. If you're familiar with his other work, you will absolutely get bits and pieces when you smell Oud Maximus. 100%. You cannot get away from it. But it's blended in a way where Oud Maximus is unique to me. Okay. It's a unique enough creation that that it kind of stands on its own. Now, here you will notice the funky oud, as I mentioned, but the volume isn't as turned up as it is in Lao Oud. So there, Lao Oud is the funkiest of his oud accords. It's also the strongest. It's the most Russian atom-like creation. The more I've worn these Bortnikoff, especially for these reviews, I think I have changed my feelings. Even from when I ranked them a week ago, I put Oud Maximus #1 and Lao Oud beneath it, right? If you just took the Bortnikoffs out, Oud Maximus was ranked as the highest Bortnikoff on that list of top 77 artisanal fragrances. Wearing these the last couple weeks more and more, I think I've come to the conclusion I would put Lao Oud right ahead of Oud Maximus, because Lao Oud focuses on that heavier animalic Indian barnyard fecal, whatever you want to call it, right? That funky oud, that cheesy oud, much more than Oud Maximus. Oud Maximus gives you a little hint. It's like the bait's on the line, and when you go to bite it, he pulls it back a little bit and hits you with the rest of his composition. And the rest of that composition is his signature spices with the cardamom and the pink pepper, that orange accord, which you'll see in Oud, Mysterious Oud, and then this unbelievable mixture of florals. And that is really the heart and soul of Dimitri's creations. I just imagine him, wading through snake-infested waters and chopping down trees in the jungle and cutting vines to get to hard places to find these unbelievable florals. Because if this is all natural, how in the world did he find all these natural flowers? And I know it's not 100% natural, but he used to really tout the fact that his fragrances were mostly natural. So it'd be like 95% natural or more, right? And so I would make the argument too that the oud in this, in Oud Maximus, one thing you'll note, you can't judge it by first spray. You really have to let this cook on your skin, because the oud on this, on my skin, lasts long into the dry down. I get the oud long into the dry down. And so what I will say is that if you're a hardcore oud head, all right, if you've been sniffing real oud from Ensar's and Rising Phoenix and these other houses, these true proper artisanal oud houses, this may not scratch your itch if you want an out there, daring, challenging type of oud. I think that there are 4 different types of oud in here, like I read off in the note listing, and I think that they are blended superbly. But even though the name is Oud Maximus, other notes sort of present themselves as the fragrance goes on. Let's put it that way. Other notes tend to take control of the fragrance. It's not just a laser beam of oud. It's just not. There's so many other things going on, right? And I heard some frag heads, I've actually heard some people describe this, especially into the dry down, as boring. Now, I wouldn't go that far. I would say if you you know, if you're looking for something that is ultra challenging and some of these ouds that are out there and hard to accept or get to know, hard to get to know, I could see how this could become monotonous. I wouldn't call it boring per se, but I would say that the dry down can get monotonous. It's just, I think Dmitry Bortnikoff really focuses on this wearability factor, and there's this unbelievable smoothness about his dry downs, how everything just comes together. That's one of the reasons I find it, you know, I'm quite frankly a little surprised when people say that they have a hard time accepting the blending of something like Dmitry Bortnikoff or Russian Adam's work. I know Russian Adam, the accords can really hit you harder. His accords are, they're much more intense, and sometimes he focuses on a note in the Riche Ladore perfumery, and that note is really either amplified or turned up, and I actually really like that. I like the challenging aspect. It's like an uppercut, some of Russian Adam's work. Russian Adam calls it heavy Russian hand, you know. The heavy Russian hand comes to work and puts the animalics in. But Bortnikoff seems to focus more on the overall blending and the smoothness of everything. And that's why I think that for somebody just getting into oud, this is a great starter. Like one of the absolute best starter for me. Now I showed you the other day my Lao oud, how there were little bits and pieces. This is like a snow globe. Look at that. It's literally like a snow globe with the pieces that were not filtered out. Someone mentioned that if it was shipped in the cold, sometimes the pieces can coagulate again and harden, even if it was properly filtered in natural perfumery like this. But I mean, it is beautiful though. But I do think that for a starter, for someone really trying to get into real ouds for the first time, I would much rather send them to something like this than, let's say, Frederick Mahl's The Night, at just because of, you know, the value for money here. You get a lot. 50 mils is a lot for $350. Especially now with some of these artisanal houses selling you, 20 or 30 mils for more, potentially much more. So it's just so smooth into the dry down, and it's, I guess the way I would describe it is it's a similar beef that I have with Oud Monarch, right? Oud Maximus and Oud Monarch both have this very smooth dry down. They smell completely different into the dry down, but they're both blended in a way where I think they're made to be wearable. Like I wore this to work yesterday, okay? Actually, the guy who sits next to me, who makes fun of me sometimes because I'm such a frag head, and I'll show him the bottles and stuff like that. He's like, what is this thing? And he sprays it on himself, like, and he's like, I smell orange. I'm like, yep, you got orange, man. But now everyone's going to smell Oud Maximus around our area. But I think Dmitry puts that emphasis on wearability. What's funny is he sprayed it right around, we sit in like a pit with a lot of people, right? And he sprayed it right in the middle of our seating area. No one came over and was like, did someone step on pig shit or what's going on? We didn't get any of that. So that goes to show Dimitri's blending, because I can definitely pick out the Indian ouds in the beginning. But like I said, imagine the Indian oud on a fishing line. Like he pulls the bait back a little bit. And so emphasis on wearability with Bortnikoff's work a lot of times. And what I will say is Oud Maximus does something else that I think is very important, and that is it highlights Dmitry Bortnikoff's work as a perfumer. It puts his different styles, from what I've gotten to know about his work. This does a fantastic job of highlighting all of those different chapters of Bortnikoff's, his likes, his focus, okay? His style, his signature, his DNA, whatever you want to call it. The Bortnikoff odd, whatever it is, right? And I think that this is, if someone came to me and said, Ramsey, I want to buy one Bortnikoff, and I want to buy one Bortnikoff that gives me an idea of the house, whether I should then pursue more, if I'll like it, do I want to pursue more from the house or just leave the house alone? This would be the one I would recommend. This is a great first starter Bortnikoff, I think, because, like I said, everyone sees the name Oud Maximus and they think maximum oud, right? A laser beam of oud, challenging, ultra animalics. and they see the 4 ouds and they're like, it must be true. But this also really showcases, Dimitri's ability to highlight other notes and create the entire blend, right? The other notes highlighted in the opening is absolutely beautiful because it gives you a little bit of that Indian oud. And what really amazes me about Oud Maximus is Dimitri created a rose oud, and not just any rose oud, but a rose oud with 4 different types of roses in here. Just to reemphasize that point, there are 4 different types of roses in here. And one of them is a rose attar. And actually, I think that sometimes this fragrance smells and wears a little bit like an attar. I've done some videos on Sultan Pasha's work within the last couple months, and I will tell you that I have been thoroughly impressed with the quality and originality and materials and everything, the blending of Sultan Pasha's attars. And this Oud Maximus in particular sometimes really feels like an attar. I know there's a gulab attar, or whatever he called it. What did he call it? He called it attar gulab. And so I know there is a attar feel to these, but there are other fragrances from some of these houses where it'll say, Shamama attar or something, but it doesn't smell like an attar. This one really somehow feels like you're smelling an attar. It must be the overall blend of all of these roses. And I just imagine Bortnikoff just trying to stuff all of these roses into this bottle, like cartoon style, like literally trying to stuff all these different types of roses in there. That's what it smells like. And so what's impressive about it, though, going back to my original thought, is that he created a rose oud that doesn't smell like a rose oud. It doesn't smell like a proper rose oud, the traditional rose oud smell that most people think about. And so if you want that proper rose oud, I have actually reviewed a fragrance called Triad by Bortnikoff. It's on the channel. It's on the Bortnikoff playlist. You'll see it. And that is his rose oud, if you will. Triad is much more a proper rose oud. Here, it feels like, and one thing I will say is, if I had all the money in the world, I would have a very hard time not owning a bottle of Triad, because Triad is beautiful. I loved it. Full bottle worthy, yes, absolutely. But the rose in the opening in Oud Maximus, when you really get that rose, what it feels like is, it feels like a rose spray painted with oud. That's the way that I would describe it. That's the descriptor. That's kind of the highlight for Oud Maximus for me. If you want kind of the way that the rose all blends together, lots of different roses in here. Sometimes they may feel powdery, sometimes they feel slightly green, sometimes they feel fresh, sometimes they feel heavy because of that attar feeling, right? And Indian rose gives off a little bit of a fruitiness as well. And so sometimes you get all of that in here. Lemoniness, and there's just so many little bits and pieces, but in a nutshell, those attars just feel painted with oud. And I say spray painted on purpose because of the little bit of the way that the oud always gives me this lacquered, sometimes oud gives me this lacquered-like feeling. And I get that here. And so, like I said, if you've been following my Bortnikoff reviews at all, I think his use of blending and florals is absolutely genius. I've never smelled anyone who can do the florals, execute them in a way that Dimitri can. And many times when I wear Oud Maximus, it's the florals that really my nose hones in on. I mean, it's literally the florals for many of his creations are like a homing beacon for me. For whatever reason, I don't know why. But I think it's just the way that he presents them to you. And along with that, he blends these roses, these different types of roses, May rose, Himalayan rose, all this other Indian rose, hybrid rose. I don't know what hybrid rose is, but attar gulab. He blends all these different types of roses with his signature frangipani and magnolia. And if you want a little bit of a deeper dive on frangipani and magnolia, it is a Bortnikoff staple, by the way, frangipani and magnolia. Go check out my review of Oud Monarch. That has frangipani and magnolia in the top, and you'll see what an important role that plays in my review of Oud Monarch. But what's interesting is, as along these once these florals really start to hit their stride, what ends up happening on my skin is this birch tar, I think, really makes this leathery note just appear. I mean, it's crazy because I've tried to sit here and like pinpoint exactly when it happens, and it happens at different intervals, but the way that it appears in the fragrance is just crazy. I mean, you're sitting here, you're smelling it, you're trying to capture all of these different changing aspects, and then all of a sudden it just like appears on the horizon. It's like if you've ever seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, when they look up and God's in the sky and they're going, and God's saying, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm averting my eyes, oh Lord." Well, stop it. It just appears in the sky. That's what the leather note feels like in Oud Maximus. It just kind of appears and hovers over the rest of the composition, like this slight leathery smokiness. And there are resins in here. There's Tolu balsam, there's vanillas, there's civet, although the civet I think works more in tandem with the oud to give it maybe a little bit of that animalic feel, or maybe it works in tandem with the deer musk in the base, which we'll talk about. But man, that hovering, leathery, ambery feel, basically the way I would describe this is a oud fragrance that has focus first on florals, then the ambery, leathery, oriental undertone with that birch tar, which gives it a little bit of that leatheriness. That's really how I would describe it, with Dmitry Bortnikoff's signature, cardamom and spices and just florals. The florals are just unbelievable. So it's an absolute bombshell. This fragrance is a bombshell. And Bortnikoff, one thing that I know about Oud Maximus is when I wear it, I can see sort of the path or the pivot that Bortnikoff took to create all these other creations. Mysterious Oud came out the same year. I don't know which came first, Mysterious Oud or Oud Maximus. They both originally came out in 2018. But if Oud Maximus came first, then I can really see how this sort of ambery nursery in the base of Oud Maximus kind of just gave birth to this more oriental focused Mysterious Oud, which I have a review on the channel of that as well, a full review if you're interested. You can see how Oud Maximus turned into Mysterious Oud, like a more oriental heavy take on this DNA. You can see how the real deer musk in the base pivoted and turned into Musk Habib, which is one of the last Bortnikoffs that I've yet to review on the channel, that I have full bottle of. And so I just think that this fragrance is like a entry into Dmitry Bortnikoff's work and mind. It's like entering his office. Come, enter my office. Oud Maximus gives you that, and you can, as I said earlier, you can feel that almost signature DNA cardamom spice combination at the top. There's so much in this fragrance that I think this is like the perfect starter fragrance. Someone who wants to get into artisanal fragrances, they don't want to go chase down a very hard to find a Riesler Doré or a $2,000 Ensar or some crazy, something like that. This is a perfect starter. And one thing about Bortnikoff, I have no clue how he does it. I have no clue how there is always availability with his fragrances. Almost always. How are these fragrances with rare and hard to find materials always available? Constantly. They're never sold out, or it always seems like they're always available, either at Lucky Scent or on his website or something. So, well, maybe not Lucky Scent, but I did mention Lee from Fragnanimous is where I got most of my Bortnikoffs. If you're in the United States, I would urge you to use Lee. He's an amazing guy. I trust him. He's one of the people I can easily give out. Not that I'm sponsored by him or anything, just a guy that I've used, and everything went completely smooth and perfect with all my purchases. And he went above and beyond. I got to know him a little bit, through the channel and other sources, and he's a fantastic guy. So Fragnanimous is his website, but I don't think he ships internationally is the problem. But if you're into these kind of natural, he sells things like a Riesler Doré, Bortnikoff, Ensars, Melegs, that kind of thing. Check his site out. So that's pretty much it. I mean, other than these little bits and pieces here, sometimes the oud feels woody, sometimes it feels slightly smoky. Sometimes you get a little bit more of that animalic. I will say that the oud does last into the dry down, if I didn't mention that. And, you know, sometimes it feels like the leather takes over a little bit. Sometimes it feels like the resins feel a little bit like they pop a little bit more. But it just kind of goes like that. This woody, floral, you know, spicy oud, but it's a wearable oud, if that makes sense. So that's kind of my review. I hope you guys appreciate it. I'll tell you what, sometimes I feel like I have to put my cape on and be like, you know, a superhero to knock these videos out, because I work all day, and then I've got my 4-year-old daughter, and just getting her everything, and you know, and then finally once I get her down to sleep, I'm like, God, it's already like 10:30. I'm exhausted, but I have to do a video for you guys. So I have to be Superman sometimes to keep knocking these out. I hope you appreciate it. As always, I love the interaction with everyone. Thank you again. I know we're starting to get to a point where we're not going to be able to celebrate every 1,000 subscriber milestone that we hit, but since it's still fresh in my head, thank you to everyone who got us to 7,000 subscribers. It is it's a blessing. Each and every one of you I'm thankful for, and can't wait to continue doing these videos for you guys. I love doing them. Thanks for watching. Cheers, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.